Albert Einstein and world governance. He is a man who explained the working system of the world through the theory of relativity. Einstein is the most influential scientist who ever lived and disentangled the universe for us after Isaac Newton. He explains his own theory of relativity as such. When a man sits with a pretty girl for an hour, it seems like a minute. But let him sit on a hot stove for a minute, and it's longer than any hour. That's relativity. Einstein's unification theory derives from his ideas about the physics field, but it also influenced of his outlook of the world around him. Einstein claims that the grand object of all theory is to unify, to make the fundamental concepts and laws as simple and as a few number as possible. Von Dogen, in his so-called book Einstein's Unification, wrote that a passion for comprehension thus led Einstein to the striving towards unification and simplification. Einstein lived at the time when racism and excessive nationalism were at its peak in Europe and tried to tackle this problem in order to stop its spread. As a citizen of Germany, he wrote in 1947, "I saw how excessive nationalism can spread like a disease, bringing tragedy to millions." In his another quote, he said that nationalism is an infantile sickness, it's the measles of the human race. He hated and despised nationalism and racism and never referred himself to any nation, religion, citizenship, or country. In his letter to Alfred Knesser on June 7, 1918, he wrote that, "I am by heritage a Jew, by citizenship a Swiss, and by makeup a human being, and the only human being without any special attachment to any state or national entity whatsoever." He also mentioned this in his book called The World as I See It. "I gang my own gait and have never belonged to my country, my home, my friends, or even my immediate family with my whole heart. In the face of all these ties, I've never lost an obstinate sense of detachment, of the need for solitude, a feeling which increases with the years." Einstein proposed two solutions for eliminating nationalistic sentiments. First of all, he suggested to erase political borders. Secondly, establish an international government like the United States of Europe. He believed that cooperation and collaboration can soon end all the human atrocities in the world. He was also a passionate devotee of democratic ruling system and always kept democratic values high above any ruling system. "My political ideal is that of democracy. An autocratic system of coercion, in my opinion, soon degenerates. In order to solidify Europe, the treaties are not useful. People's minds must be prepared for it, gradually awakening them. We humans resemble social animals because we eat, live, and wear clothes that others have made." Then he explains that the society itself depends on certain open-minded individuals that helps the whole community to thrive. He explained that sheep-like masses can easily become pure against others and be manipulated. That's why open-minded individuals are needed. Interestingly, in some of his writings and speech, he denied the establishment of big organizations for this matter in his book called The World as I See It. For example, he said that the best method in this case is the violent one of conscientious objection, with the aid of organizations for giving moral and material support to the courageous conscientious objectors in each country. He argued that we need to stop underground politics and establish an organization to solve it. We also need to influence to the minds of people. In 1932, Einstein wrote a letter to his colleague and friend, the famous founder of psychoanalysis, Sigmund Freud, concerning the future of the world and psychological state of human beings. Einstein wholeheartedly asked Freud, "Is there any way of delivering mankind from the menace of war?" Einstein then proceeds on to mention the advance of technology and how it became the matter of life and death. In the first letter to Freud, he shows optimistic view, saying that, "As for me, the normal objective of my soul affords no insight into the dark places of human will and feeling." Einstein proposes the setting up legislative and judicial body by international consent to settle every conflict arising between nations. Thus, he points his first axiom: the quest of international security involves the unconditional surrender by every nation. But his concern was psychological factors which paralyzed these efforts. political class craving for power in every nation who survives with the help of individual businessmen. He then asks these questions. How this clique of ruling class achieve to bend others, and explains that because church, commanders, school, press, and others are at their thumbs to propagate what they want. Then asks how others ready to sacrifice themselves for them, because man has within a lust for hatred and destruction. Then he asks, is it possible to wake up the intelligentsia from these atrocities? Einstein claims that there is an instinct at stake, but also deliberate action that causes wars, and he asks Freud to help him to find an answer in the light of his discoveries. After 2 months, Sigmund Freud answered to Einstein. He explained his answers through animals in the wild, which solved the problem through violence and killing, and this violence evolved by the development of weaponry. Freud explained that violence transformed into the law when the weaklings opposed powerful ones by creating alliance, and he calls it l'union fait la force. Thus, we may define right as the might of a community, but it also employs violence against one powerful, so community becomes violent, which creates a cycle of repetition. He also mentions the paradox of war and peace, explaining that war brought peace between Turks and Mongols, Pax Romania in Mediterranean Sea, peace in French Republic, but it didn't work in practice because victory is short-lived and the altercation of the situation demanded armed counter. There is but one sure way of ending war, and that's the establishment by common consent of a central control which shall have the last word in every conflict of interest. But 2 things are needed, he says. First, the creation of Supreme Court of Judicature. Second, the investment adequate executive force. Freud said that although League of Nations was successful in the first, it lacked in the second because it did not possess any force. However, Freud applauded the creation of League of Nations. Freud asks why we don't accept the world as it is, and then explains that we can't because we humans have a right over our life and cannot be pushed to kill another man. Freud divides human instinct into 2 aspects: conserve, unify, and destroy, kill. He argued that the first can find its end in aggression, namely in killing, which makes it difficult to separate them. Ideal community could be built if individuals surrender to the dictates of reason, which is utopian. Other methods could be used too, but it takes time, as he states it. In other words, a mill grinds so slowly that before flour is ready, men are dead of hunger. At the end, he claims that it's impossible to say how long it will take to see a pacifist people as we are, like Einstein and Freud. Cultural disposition on war can create peace, but how it will happen, he cannot answer. These letters between Einstein and Freud proves how the peace issue of the world concerned 2 eminent scientists of the 20th century, both of them eager to find the answer and solution for it, but they are stuck with human nature. In his essays on humanism, Einstein claims that the available weapons of destruction are of a kind such that no place on earth is safeguarded against sudden total destruction, and the only hope for protection is in a supranational way. It is necessary that the individual state be prevented from making war by a supranational organization supported by a military power that is exclusively under its control. Otherwise, individual state can challenge this organization that is built on words and document. A world government must also impose judicial decisions for the international problems. This government should be based on clear-cut constitution and military power, and nations who are interested in peaceful world must surrender their military force to the international organizations. However, since World War II, we could not achieve this goal, because the United Nations had neither military nor legal basis for international security. Therefore, it needs to pass the moral line. We shall be able to solve the problem when it will be clearly evident to all that there is no cheaper way out of the present situation. Then he sees the realities of the world and states that real power lies between the United States and Russia, and we need to reach an agreement between them. He also argued that nothing has done to reach an agreement with Russia. In his letter to Walter Marcel in 1948 on a method to enforce world peace, he portrayed Russia as such. Better to let Russia see that there is nothing to be achieved by aggression, but there are advantages in joining a world government. Then, the Russian regime's attitude will probably change and they will take part without compulsion. At the end, Einstein proposes 4 points. First of all, mutual inspection of weapons will diminish fear and result in security. Secondly, denationalization can be achieved with interchange of military and scientific technical personnel, which leads to the internationalization of military resources. After the fulfillment of the second point, organizations now can both disbanded and placed under supranational authority. Lastly, incorporate all nations into the supranational organization. Although he doubted a big organization at first, soon he changed his opinion and restated that there is only one path to peace and security, the path of supranational organization. He condemned military spending and saw permanent peace in achieving to honest attempt, not by threats. He took equal side both in realist and idealist camp. He believed in young generation, stating that sense of responsibility and initiative is at work in the young generation, and in avoiding nationalities. Lastly, Einstein saw a problem in the human mindset. Albert Einstein died in 1955 at the age of 76, leaving a legacy after himself and hope for the young generation. He understood the world and calculated it, and tried to change it. Although he didn't witness a peaceful world, he declared his optimism for us and making us to believe a better and peaceful world.